very kind. That's what happens when you say to somebody, oh, here's my photo album, and go for it. You're going to be seeing some of those other photos at a later time. And I have to say that the acknowledgement of the saliva work was thanks to Pat Nuttall, who got the Hoogstraat medal. So, Rick Fairhurst was building up my self-confidence yesterday by saying, this must be the most terrifying thing you've ever done. But what I'm going to do is tell a story. I'm going to tell a story about the society I love, and I'm going to tell it from for the younger people who are becoming increasingly numerous and influential in our society, and to the international members. So let's see if I can get this thing working without hurting anybody. Okay. So to the society. I mean, this might be a question that people asked a long time ago as to why on earth did the US need a society focused on tropical medicine and hygiene? And the truth is that, during the 18th and 19th centuries, infectious diseases, tropical diseases, were having a tremendous impact on the country. Yellow fever was the most dreaded disease in the whole of North America, with maybe 100,000 deaths. Multiple outbreaks throughout the US, throughout that coast. And I have to say that Don Burke kindly provided a lot of these slides for me, so I acknowledge that. But it was kind of a mystery, and this physician, Carlos Finley, sort of hypothesized the idea that mosquitoes might be involved in the transmission. And for the trainee members of our society, this was the details here. And he, I think this was something that Don Burke discovered, that only one of his 104 experiments actually lent support to his theory, but that one experiment was the one that was right. Repetition is one thing, but 104, that's tenacity, so you have to admire that. There was also the influence, of course, of the US military. In the Spanish-American War of 1898, there were about 1,000 people that were killed in combat, but there were over 5,000 that died because of disease, mostly to yellow fever. And in response to that, the US Army developed this Yellow Fever Commission. They were doing volunteer studies, the sort of things that you could never do today, to prove transmission by mosquitoes, and discovering things which had really never been thought of before, things like the extrinsic incubation period. Then, of course, there was commerce. At that time, the Panama Canal was being constructed with a tremendous death toll of the employees on that project. This is a letter from William Crawford Gorgas to Henry Rose Carter, saying that, well, the evidence may support the idea that mosquitoes are involved in this. And we'll come back to Gorgas in a couple of minutes. He's also an integral part of the society. His team went to Panama in 1904, and every one of them got malaria. They were there to combat yellow fever, and they all got malaria. But within just over a year, thanks to what we now would call source reduction, they successfully eliminated the transmission of yellow fever in Panama. It wasn't only in Panama. This is a picture. This is about 275 miles from where we are at the moment in Savannah, Georgia, where those are people actually combating yellow fever, doing the same things as Gorgas was doing, source reduction, until they finally combated yellow fever in about malaria in about 1935. Sorry. The problems have not gone away. This is a pie chart just showing the toll on human life that infectious disease continues to have. People have said long ago, we're beating infectious diseases. It still accounts for about 25% of all deaths worldwide. There's the green sector there, which of course is close to my heart, which is the vector-borne diseases, which account for about 1 million deaths a year. So we're still dealing with these. And this is one of the reasons, as we've been seeing throughout many talks during the meeting this week, global travel has increased so much. 2 million people a year on board commercial airlines every year. We've seen this with chikungunya. These are data from December last year, where we've seen 2,000 travel-associated cases and a relatively small number of autochthonous, mosquito locally transmitted cases. And then this was the Zika map for about 3 weeks ago, where we've seen almost 4,000 cases of Zika and almost 140 locally transmitted cases. When you look at these numbers and look what's going on around the world, the relevance of our society and the impact of what you, our members, can do has never been as great as it is now. And I honestly believe that. We do not know what's going to come next, but our membership is critical for preparing whatever it may be. So the society itself, formed in 1903 by 28 physicians on March the 9th. It was originally called the Society of Tropical Medicine of Philadelphia, and then the name was changed 12 days later to the American Society of Tropical Medicine. It's gone through a few reiterations over time. So we had the American Society of Tropical Medicine. At the same time, we had the National Malaria Committee and then the National Malaria Society. And then in 1952, it combined to form what we are representing now, the American Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. The first president was Thomas H. Fenton, a physician. But the fourth president, we go back to Gorgas, combating yellow fever. He was our fourth president. A first for us, and this was not until 1908, was our first female member. The first female member who was also the first non-physician scientist member. So this is Clara Southmaud Ludlow. Graduated with a BS in agriculture and an MA in botany. Received her PhD, and of course this again resonates with me. Her dissertation was the mosquitoes of the Philippine Islands, the distribution of certain species and their occurrence in relation to the incidence of certain diseases. The first woman known to have published extensively on the taxonomy of mosquitoes. First member, an entomologist. Fantastic. Membership itself was steadily increasing over the years. It had a peak during World War II when we suddenly realized that, yes, we were deploying troops to areas where they were being threatened by tropical diseases. And then it declined and we had sort of a steady state of about 1,000 members. We've had many distinguished members over the years. I've just picked out a few that happen to have that Nobel Prize thing. Bob Dylan isn't amongst us, our members as far as I know. This was Thomas Weller, discovery of varicella zoster, chickenpox and cell cultures that we all use so extensively today, and serial passage for vaccines. Max Tyler, mouse models and the yellow fever vaccine, over 400 million cases of yellow fever vaccine with almost no untoward effects, protecting people, and of course have been very involved in distribution and fighting the outbreaks in Angola. Albert Sabin was a member, discovered porphyroviruses, but also developed, of course, a live polio vaccine. These were our members, and Colton Gajanacek, was the discoverer of prions, the cause here. So where are we now? We are the largest international scientific organization of experts dedicated to reducing the worldwide burden of tropical infectious disease and improving global health. What about that? I mean, that is something that we have to be proud of. The largest, the most impactful. We have a number of subgroups, very, very important to the society. We've got the American Committee of Viruses, ACAV, American Committee of Medical Entomology, ACME, American Committee on Clinical Tropical Medicine and Travelers' Health, American Committee for Molecular, Cellular and Immunoparasitology, and the Global Health Group, which is growing, instigated just 3, 4 years ago, and is a major constituent group for us. As Brad showed on one of his slides, I became quite involved with ACME in particular and with ACAB over the years, and that really has been a mechanism that I want to point out to our young people in the audience to move through leadership and to meet people and become influential. We did a survey. We did the first ever membership survey at the end of last year, thanks to David Hill and Buffy, and less than half of our members are actually members of subgroups. And I just want to encourage you, I've seen it upon some of the notices, but students can join as many of these subgroups for free. And members from low income and lower middle income countries are entitled to at least one free membership at this point. Sign up, please. It's very important that we hear your voices. The journal has been an important part of the society for a long time. Again, it has gone through various reiterations over time. It was the American Society of Tropical Hygiene in 2003. In 1913, we had the American Journal of Tropical Diseases and Preventive Medicine. It went through various changes. It merged with the Journal of National Malaria Society in 1952, and then that was when it finally became the American Journal of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene with our, I won't say logo, it was a seal at that point. I'm looking at Karen down there. 1921, the first woman to be named as an author. These things take time, but we're moving forward, as you will see. And this is Edna A. Hannibal, and she worked in Galveston. And I desperately tried to get a picture, and none of you can prove that this is not her. And eventually we went to the librarians, and he said, well, we've got this picture of a woman working with on an outbreak in Galveston with Mark Boyd, who was the other author, so we think it's her. So for posterity at the moment, there is Edna, visibly doing bacteriology, working with rats in the 1920 outbreak of bubonic plague. Brad's shaking his head, he's thinking it hasn't changed much. No. So what about manuscripts? In terms of the journal, only about a third of the manuscripts that we get are actually from the US. That means the rest of it are from multiple countries around the world. It is a truly international journal. And you probably, I hope you have read this. This was published in this month's edition, in the November edition. That's the new cover with our logo. And it is the International American Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. It's a great editorial. It's got some of the graphs on that I'm going to be using. Policy and advocacy, I gave a talk on this yesterday. I won't reiterate some of my comments. I was not at all convinced that it was worthwhile, and I am totally convinced it is absolutely critical to the society now. I'm a convert. Great opportunities, that's Jody and Jerica at the top, who show us around. We're well prepped. We get great photo opportunities. There's Rebecca Kent and Jerica with Senator Pat Roberts, who, the more astute amongst you can see that he can't actually spell my name, but it's a great picture. And of course, we've got the website, something that Doug and others have been developing very intensely, and it's very user-friendly. Like the app, I said the other day, I haven't had to use my teenagers to get the app to work, and it's been very, very beneficial. So we've had subgroups giving statements on Zika virus. Scott Weaver had a question and answer session on it. I was participating in a National Academies workshop on Zika, and it was like a subgroup of TropMed in many ways. So many of our people were there, our members were being included. So we are known at the highest levels in the nation for our expertise. We sent a letter to our senators and our congressmen, unprecedented, which is a funny word, isn't it, for president signing, but Presidents, 26 presidents, past, present, and future, signed this letter. And we can't take credit that we got the $1.1 billion funded, but it certainly got notice. And this is an email. This is a picture with Dave Morans here in the front, a long-term member, with Tony Fauci. And Karen Gorleski is obviously a great friend of Tony and wrote to the director of NIAID. And for those of you who can't see his reply, this is what it says. First name terms with our executive director. That's not too shabby. The meetings themselves. So remember, it all started off in this. Okay. It all started off in this small building in Philadelphia, and guess what? I think for any of you who've been coming even for 5 years, it is growing enormously. I'm not going to steal the numbers that will be announced, I think, in the business meeting, but we have broken all records at this meeting. In terms of attendees, I've only got the data for the Philadelphia meeting. I know some of this will be represented, but we had 4,083 attendees, 50% were members, 28% were trainees, and 40% were international. We are the International American Society for Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. In terms of gender equities, I've been crunching some numbers. So the purple are female, the gold color, yellow color are males. The 16 were not declared when we did the survey, but we're at about 39 to 61 at that particular meeting. In terms of total symposia that year, we had 169. And if you break it down in terms of presenters for symposia, scientific sessions, and abstracts, we're hovering about equality. So that is good news. Overall, if you take all of those symposia, posters and abstracts, we were 51-49, female to male. So critical contributions from all people, from all nations. This was actually the number of abstracts from 2000 to 16, so you can see a general increase in those numbers, almost 2,000 this year. I think Dan will get that. And also the breadth of subject topics. I mean, I remember when I was coming in 1991, it was a busy meeting, but I look at it now and I look at the number of disciplines which are represented. It's just amazing. Well, I have to go back to vector-borne pathogens, don't I, just briefly. A number of authors, so one of the reasons I came over to the States a long time ago was to take part in the John D. Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation Biology of Disease Vectors course. And this was published in PLOS a few years ago, looking at the increase in activities related to arthropod-borne viruses and vector biology. And many of the authors are in the audience today. And what did they take as the standard for measurement? It was activities at our annual meeting. That was the bar by which they wanted to measure everything. And you look between 1990 and 2005, the steady increase of interest and obviously impact of that field. We've got lots of awards. Many of you have been at some of these presentations. I won't go through them all, but communication, Beta K Aspid, and this is what most of those medals look like. These are the society level medals. The Walter Reed, Bailey K. Ashley, Donald Mackay, Ben Keane, and Augustine the Prince, Joseph Augustine the Prince. Then we have lots of awards based on the subgroups for various accomplishments and achievements. And yeah, I've got to call Pat out again. So I used to be on this stage when I was with ACME presenting the Hoopstrap Award. It was always sort of a thrill. 25 recipients since 1987, all men. And this is what's finally happened, and so deservedly so. So Pat has been a friend. Oh dear, I'm not going to count the years, Pat. 1990, and very deservedly so. So again, call you out. Congratulations. This is the other thing. So, thank you. So, I announced this the other day. We're going to have the first society level medal to be named after a female iconic leader in tropical medicine. The council voted unanimously to support this. Pat Walker is going to lead a team to identify that iconic leader, identification based on input from you. And so my schedule on, when did this start? Sunday? Said pause for applause, and that's what I'm going to do now, because this is very, very significant. We've finally got to this point. It's going to be interesting. Okay, so now you can applaud. Thank you. Am I allowed to lead the audience like that? I'm looking down at you, Karen, for that bit of information. And we are a global society. I want to emphasize that. We have so many international connections. This was the first annual ASTMH meeting in Peru. Willie Lascano was involved with this, Dan, and of course Alan McGill. I'm always cautious about calling anything a first, but Karen and I went to the 6th annual meeting in Peru. It really has become an annual meeting. Wonderfully attended, 225 attendees from 14 different countries. And of course this year, it was a true tribute to Alan McGill, who had been so influential, and this meeting symbolized everything that he stood for. We also went to the first ASTMH meeting in Kenya, and again, I hope that is the tendency that we're going to see, primarily organized by local people at Kemery, and Sarap Aksoy was very influential. And there's Karen and I against the sign, and we are with Evan there from Center for Disease Control. 150 attendees. These phenomenal posters and presentations, mainly based on presentations that have already been made here at the annual meeting. I'm not looking at the clock, so somebody will tell me. And guess what? Now we're going to have a first ASTMH meeting in Thailand. What is this, Pat? About 3 weeks from now? Pat and Karen? How many? Karen is 2 weeks. Anxiety down there. So again, we hope that's going to be the first of many. Here we are in Georgia. This is 2016. We've had a tremendous international participation. Who'd have believed? We've got the director of PAHO here, who did a very emotive, inspirational talk on Zika virus from personal experience. I'm glad that I am not following Zulfi's talk from last night. His presentation on global child survival was just awe-inspiring. It was amazing. And he works in Aga Khan in Pakistan. If we look at the distribution of our speakers from this, we can see it's spotty, but it's around the globe. South America, Africa, Asia. We had the Charles Franklin Craig lecture, The Emergence of Zika, with Albert Coe, somebody who has been working intimately in Brazil, seeing the devastations of this disease. Honorary international fellows. This is for non-US citizens. And we looked at the committee. I was told I had some power when I became president, which kind of surprised me. I was allowed to appoint a few people to key things. And so we'd never had a non-US person on the international selection committee. So John Ashcroft sitting there in the middle, his normal demure self, has been appointed and gratefully accepted the position on the international fellows. And these were the people that were honoured by that on Sunday. And if we look, again, we have these international fellows from multiple different countries. And these are our ambassadors for the society. You're all ambassadors for our society. But these people are taking these prestigious awards and motivating young people around the world. Fellowships and awards, including the Borough's Welcome, Fund, the Centennial Award, Robert Shope, Benny Keene. I haven't got all of the data on where all of the people come from, but this is the Borough's Welcome Fund. This is where people have been working. And the pie chart beneath is male to female ratios. And these are pictures of our 2016 fellows. I met a few of them very briefly the other night, not long enough, but they're from all over. And then this is the Robert Shope International Fellows. So they, again, are from multiple different countries around the world. And so with the Centennial Travel Award, again, from multiple countries around the world. We've got the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, ASTMH, funded travel awards. I've met many of these travel awardees. One just said goodbye to me. She was sorry that she couldn't come and said, this is my first visit to the United States. I cannot believe that I'm here. So I think there was 40 of them this year. And look, we cover the globe pretty well. I don't have a current picture of the Young Investigators Award, but many international people. This is from 2014. Where else can you go and sit down and get a picture with Bill Gates? And I had to look very carefully to find him. He sort of sat right in the middle of the students. I mean, that is neat. We're an inclusive society, and I want to tell you that your vote counts. It's important to participate in the leadership. This was the council picture when I became president. The process is we have a nominating committee. You can nominate yourself, please do. You can get people to nominate for you. This year I've appointed Rebecca Rico Hess, Hector Dubia from Puerto Rico, who I assume could not be here. This is the first time I haven't seen him for many years because they've got 30,000 Zika cases at the moment. And then Tony James, National Academy member, and just another person that is so passionate about trainees. This is the executive committee. I hope you've seen them. They're very approachable, and this is the ASTMH Council. In terms of council by gender, we have got 50-50 sort of hovering in a small number, but good participation from different areas. And then I have to call out Jim Day, because 1903 we started, we've got our first international member on council. This has got to change, I hope. He's on council for pure talent and expertise. Chris Plow introduced him. He was a key speaker last year, and so I'm thrilled that. And because we're all happy on council, I've got to tell you this. Any of you out there could be on the council. I'm not saying it's easy. It takes a while, and I can't believe I'm going to make a sporting sort of analogy here, but the playing field is flat and there's lots of coaches out there. My family would not believe that I referred to sports, but it really is. Also, another key thing we're doing, David Fiddick is leading a task force to actually get the proposal. It's going to take a change of the bylaws. It doesn't happen overnight, but we need a trainee member on council. I can't pretend I know what young people are thinking anymore, if ever I could. We ask your opinion. We think we know. But we're going to have a trainee member, we hope, within the next year when it gets to the bylaws, and it's going to have full voting rights. It's just going to be a normal member. Presidents, well, it only took 92 years to get our first female representation, but we've now got Pat Walker handing over from me and Regina, that two in a row. And here's, President, shoot high, like I say. It's fun. I'm saying that now, aren't I? But it really is. It's been an absolutely amazing year. And a privilege to serve, and it can happen. Membership, I think again at an all-time high. Middle income, high income countries about 53, lower middle income 12%. Student membership is high, international membership is high. By gender, about 59, 41% in those that declared it in the surveys. The funny thing is that we've been going since 1903 and we haven't been collecting much data. I mean, you'd think that a whole bunch of scientists gathering in a room would be collecting data on the society, but our history is hard to get a hold of. We have records, but in terms of, we don't have a historian. We'd love to get a fully committed historian. I'm not volunteering, Karen. And in terms of international distribution, 38 and 62% compared to 57, 43. As I mentioned, we did our first membership survey since 1903. David Hill did a phenomenal job. Buffy has been crunching the numbers. I don't have the information to give you that. David may be able to do those. Only about 10% responded, which is pretty much par for the course, unfortunately. We would love more people to respond to these surveys. It's relatively simple. 43% international of that 10%, and about 14% students. And I just have to encourage you. We need to hear you. We will listen. The council will listen. I'm going to show a few slides that you've already seen. Because this is how I feel about the society. Extraordinary opportunities for ordinary people. Brad showed this. I grew up in a small town in Oxford, a little market town. The first significant thing that happened was in 549. Alfred the Great was born. That was the first king that kind of unified England against the Vikings. And then our church was built in about 1400. And then the last thing that really happened of any significance, we also had a cholera outbreak. So it's a fairly quiet town. Not a lot happens. Wide spaces between events. That was actually the church where my parents got married. Yeah, I didn't show the diaper one. I forgot I gave you that. But that's me with my parents and my grandparents on holiday with my teddy bear, which I still have, but he's kind of beaten up now. He's in a box somewhere. I've traveled a lot through the society, through my jobs, and it's a real privilege to travel to so many countries, many of the countries where I've met many of you. Really is empowering, seeing different cultures, integrating. That was my first trip with Barry Beatty, looking very macho there, isn't he? I'm looking very young, I guess. And who would have thought that I'd have been working here? My boss in Oxford just sent me here to learn transgenics. This is a society where you make friends. You meet your heroes. And one of the lovely things about this society is that people are so welcoming, so kind of spirit. Heroes like Bob Shope. So I've got this rather unfashionable tie on. It was Bob Shope's. When Bob Shope passed away, his family asked me if I wanted something. And I've worn this tie to every meeting since he passed away, because he's one of my heroes. He really represented society and our values. Somebody who was tremendously successful, tremendously humble, and he accomplished that by being a nice person. He loved students. He loved trainees. He never said no. And there's a picture of Jack Woodall there in good spirits. I think that was just last year at London Society. The London School of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. So it's a great place to be. Great people. Brad pointed this out. My success is on the shoulders of so many graduate students, so many colleagues. Collaborative spirit that counts for everything. And I would say a lot of water under the bridge, but Brad would correct me and say a lot of beer through the glasses, I would guess, which is true. And there's this group. So this is the continuity of leadership for the meeting, for the organization. You know many of those faces. These are from Callum Group. This is our managing group with Karen as the executive director. This is Doug. This is Lynn. Sorry, this really is Buffy, Rhonda, Judy. You know these people. I accomplished something that I didn't think I would have accomplished yesterday. I found Lynn with only one phone in her hand. I had to get a fast shutter speed to get it, but it's her 20th annual meeting of organization for the society. And they're seamless. It's just so smooth. I don't know how you do it, Lynn. Really, I don't. So thank you to Lynn. The last slide, a tough one. So my family at home. Dana, my wife, my soulmate for life, at her Center for Disease Control. She has enabled me to be here. She sacrifices for her own career in order to promote and support mine. When I had this crazy idea that I'd like to be the president, behind me all the way. Our two sons is kind of making me doubt genetics. The older one, they don't always dress like that, by the way. So Nick is 6'5", very skinny. Well, very skinny. Yeah, very slim. And I must admit, I said to him at one point, you're exactly the same body shape as I was at your age. And the disparaging look he gave me as to seeing what his future might hold in store with all this. And then James, just a mere 6'3" and 200 pounds as a football player. And there's Christopher. The birth of Christopher was inspirational. I remember it so clearly. Total joy. His death when he was 90 weeks old of SIDS is that constant reminder of the fragility of life. But it still provides inspiration, in my prayers every night, in my thoughts all the time. But I look out at the society, and because of the membership, because of what you do, that represents my ultimate goal with saving lives and necessary deaths. And with that, I thank you most sincerely.